Hey, thanks so much. Yeah, I was thinking about how long I've known Tim, and Tim actually took me to my first con. He kind of mentioned this one, but it took me to my first con, and I'll never forget it. We're sitting there, and it was right before the last session of the day, and he kind of looked at me and he said, "You never want to be the last talk before you end the day." So I'm trying to figure out what this means about our relationship, Tim, but I'll let it slide. No, I was super excited to be here. We're going to talk about some fun stuff, and a couple things that I took away from this whole pandemic is we don't have enough fun. So I had to put fun in the title. Hopefully we have it. But I really want to talk about some items that I'm passionate about. But before we do that, I'm going to make some commitments. One, we're going to try to have fun. Two, there's an opportunity to win a drink from me during this presentation, so pay attention.
Are you wearing a yellow lanyard on purpose?
Oh, we can take it off.
Sorry.
No, all fine. Yes. Pluto. All right. So, first commitment, we're going to have a little bit of fun, hopefully. Second commitment, you have an opportunity to win a drink from me. So, here we go. Let's talk about the problem, because we talk about it a little bit, but I don't know if we define it enough. So, attackers, they have some things that we don't. They have more time, more money, more resources. And what can those attackers do? They can attack at a distance. So, here's the question of the day, and if you answer it, I'm buying a drink afterwards. Who was the security researcher in the 70s/80s that said you could attack at a distance? Ted? Bruce Schneier. Well done. And what don't attackers leave behind? They don't leave very many of these things behind, do they? Otherwise, we'd catch, obtain, put them in jail very, very quickly. But that just doesn't happen. So I had to come up with a name with this. I couldn't resist. And I call this the Security Bermuda Triangle. Yeah. I put that out there. Yeah. It'll be on GitHub later. But I just was like, this looks like a triangle. I got to call it something. Let's do problem statement continued. Attackers have to find, can you guys even see that from the back? That's a tiny pinhole, right? That's all they have to find. And security has to do what? Defend all the leaks in the dam, defend the creators and their processes or their people due to a lack of XYZ. Really, really hard. And then what does security have to do too? They have to find all the needles in the haystack, every single one of them. You don't have an option. So this right here, we could spend hours talking about these last two slides. But I had to come up with a name for this one, so I just called this the Security Diamond of Death. And yeah, it's a little overwhelming. All right, let's go. Problem statement continued, because we're continuing. Security teams must collaborate and show business value all the time. Yes, and go to meetings. And listen to your team, and do all your one-on-ones and all that fun stuff. Compliance is constantly evolving. Look at the privacy laws that are state-specific. Look at CCPA, look at GDPR. Look at all the alphabet soup. It's not easy. So compliance is hard. And projects, there's way more of them than what we can do. And they take a lot of time and resources. And so I came up with a name with this one. Why security is hard-shaped thing. That's going on GitHub too. Pluto, that's going later. But it is, right? Security's stinking hard. And so again, let's talk about what that reveals. So security Bermuda Triangle, security diamond of death. Why security is hard-shaped thing. The guy just walking in is like, what is going on? But let's talk about, those are pressures. And what happens when an organization or an entity is under extreme pressure? There are fissures that develop. What's a fissure? It's a breaking down of things, a cracking or a splitting. We are climbing Mount Everest as security practitioners, and we definitely don't want to fall into a fissure, do we? Right? So what can those pressures absolutely reveal in this space? Training deficiencies in our people, a lack of documentation in our processes. We have to be thorough every single time, and it takes one mistake and it's done. And technology, there's a lack of block bad thingy things, right? The unknowns, how do you block those with technology that doesn't exist? So this is a tough space. And think about this again from a Log4j point of view. So those pressures up top, the attackers had to have been drooling, right? And just sitting there and waiting. And were we having fun as security practitioners? No, it was a terrible day. All right, you came up with these terms. Where do we go from here? We have to flip the engagement model. We have to. What does that mean? Well, today, all the attackers are there, and there's a lot more of them. Again, more time, money, resources, all that stuff. And we're over here on security side. And you'll see that, like in this picture, these security practitioners, they have like shields, right? In reality, our security teams need the same equivalent tools as SEAL Team 6 to be effective, right? Tiny but mighty, that might work here in some cases. But most organizations, these are the numbers. So how do we flip that? We've got to add all the people that you see on the right. And the security team has to outnumber the attackers on the bottom. So what I'm talking about are the developers, the engineers, the business people who have a security mindset. That's what I'm talking about. That's the opportunity. Guess how many organizations operate over here on the right? Hardly any. Hardly any. This is flipping the table on the attackers. When people say that, I want to flip the table on the attackers, this is it. And here's what's interesting. It looks like I drew that on crayon. That was on purpose, and I might have. But maturity levels vary greatly between organizations and those people on the right that we need to bring into security teams. Some development groups, they understand this stuff. Some don't. So how do we level the playing field? And that's ultimately what this entire talk is about, is how do we move forward and flip the engagement model? So, how do we get invited to the party? Let's bring up a quick definition that will help us. DevSecOps, we might say it, but do we really understand on how to do it? And so, I'll just say this, everyone's responsible for security. If that's not in your job descriptions, if you're not talking about that, if you're not making that part of your culture, we're failing today as organizations. And so everyone is responsible for security with the goal of safely distributing security decisions at speed. We're talking about speed. So the benefit is huge to the business. It's not a small deal. It's a big deal. And not only that, but you're going to operate with speed without sacrificing safety. Some of us have talked about in this conference psychological safety. Well, you can build that. You can do some really cool things with that, right? So real quick, I said how to get invited to the party and take notice when the party goes wrong. Let's take a minute and look at what it looks like when the party goes wrong. Let's see if I can make this happen. Can I do this? Haha. Here we go. We're at the party.
It's right here.
Spin him around.
Ready?
Spin him around.
Okay, spin you around. Okay, hang on.
go.
Christian, get out of there. 2, 3.
That is a fail. And now I'm trying to get over there to stop it. Okay, so that's when the party goes wrong, right? And oftentimes, we think it's simple, but it's not. And in that actual scenario, I'm not sure who was turning the kid around, and was that the security professional, and we're like, just swing for the fences and we get hit, or if it's the opposite side. But that's an example of what it looks like, and we've got to identify that, and we've got to recognize it, and we've got to mitigate those opportunities. So let's move to the next slide here, and hopefully we'll dive in. Let's see if I can get over there. Can I do that? Cool. So how do we get invited to the party, first of all? And getting the invite is an important thing. Words matter, number one. Okay? So we think about what we want to accomplish, how we want to accomplish it. We want to move with speed, and we want to move securely. Well, there's some key parts of that. You can start by having a voice. Think of messaging. Security starts with X. Security starts with you. Security starts with us. Those simple messages go a long way within the organization, and they apply to the people that we had on the far right that are going to help us turn the tables. So engineers, developers, product managers, all of those kinds of things. Do you as a security organization need to create a new mantra, a new philosophy? We will not do security unless we partner with engineering on every single thing we do. If you make that statement and you make it public and you hold yourself accountable to it, what a game changer. Absolute game changer. And then you can define and refine that message as you go, and you can set targets and celebrate wins. How many people in here have celebrated at their company a win that they've had in the last 2 months? Raise your hand. Okay, there's like 5 people that have celebrated a security win. And I'm terrible at it too, but if you don't do that across your organization, what kind of precedence is that setting? We have to celebrate those wins, or we lose our team, holistic team that's going to help turn the tide. Reduce friction, number 2. There are times where people are saying, well, our tool that can automate is better. Well, is it really? Or can you leverage the DevOps platform and tooling that's already there? Why do I have to create my own? If the business outcome is the same, why are you having that argument inside the organization? So let's talk and focus on business outcomes in this space versus, well, it's your code or it's my code. It's, hey, partner together. Embed yourself within these product and engineering teams and have fun with releases and features. And also hold summits. So I will tell you, we hold a security summit twice a year. And we have every product and engineering team possible on those calls. We actually hold 2 calls, one in the morning, one at night, because we're an international business. So we do that so that they know our plans and they can help us move the ball forward across the board. But reducing friction is absolutely key. Next thing, consumable. Actually, John spoke to this just a few minutes ago. You have to make consumable services. Well, how do you do that? Well, you can leverage APIs. Do your developers want to log into your security tools? Nope. Usually they don't. So how do you create meaningful services that are consumable in the way they want to consume them so that you can be empowered, they can carry that torch with you? Security as code and infrastructure as code is something you need to think about along that process. And then pretty soon, eventually, it starts to look like code development, doesn't it? It looks like you're partnering together and you're creating solutions to create the business outcomes that you want to. And that's true co-development. And I would challenge you all to think about what does that look like in the security space. Secure and compliant. I think there was an individual earlier today that talked about shifting left closer to the code upon origination. By default, it should be secure. Earliest stages of development, it should be secure. As fast as possible, it should be secure. So somebody should have an automated way to get a server that has compliant and secure settings by default. You have to purposely undo those to make it insecure. If you start doing that, you win. Make it hard not to do it well and not to do it right, and organizations can take care of business. And lastly, business wins. What wins did the organization have? And let me explain what I mean. It's very powerful to say, hey, we deployed that code 6 times faster because all the security checks were already done. All of that testing was already done. We had already ran this through our landscape. We already vulnerability scanned it because it was automagic. We already did all that kind of stuff. Now you're cooking with gas, you're moving with speed, and you're doing it in a secure fashion. And then highlight those. Again, celebrate here. And then you have to imagine that your customer interactions are going to improve, because if a customer wants to security test your product, okay, done. Here's the report. It's automated. And then the last one is, can you demonstrate that you've driven sales? Because that's what we're here for in businesses, is to drive sales and to help. And if you're proactive in that space and helping them engineer, define architecture, creating automation, that's what it looks like. Here's the thing. Culture matters. Security must DevOps. DevOps must security. They have to work together. So some real-world examples. Configuration management. Why is it all on security to do configuration management? I'm pretty sure that configuration management can be 100% given to developers when they're operating in a safe space. There's a lot of time and effort that security teams spend on config management for the right reasons, but significant amount of time can be given back if done well. Vulnerability management. John talked about, in the previous talk, he talked about vulnerability management, and having automation in that space is absolutely key. I'll tell you exactly what we do. We scan every day, every asset. Every asset has an owner. There's automation across the board that says, hey, VP, you may not have closed your vulnerabilities. Go get it and check. Go close those vulnerabilities. Also, developers can go scan their own assets in real time. If you trust them, give them the access to do so. File integrity management. Who knows more about what should be changing in that landscape and what shouldn't? The DevOps personnel, the engineering teams, those folks know more about how that system's supposed to operate than the security team. Again, we're pushing more resources on the right-hand side of that earlier chart. And then firewall rules. I'm not sure how intra-data center segmentation is possible without having developers handle that, have knowledge of it. So, think about how do you give them the capability in a safe way. So you got to sanity check rules. You don't want a whole bunch of any rules running around, but yeah, it's definitely an important piece. Okay, so key takeaways. You're so close to getting your drink, by the way. Pressures are immense and overwhelming. And those pressures are below the security Bermuda Triangle, diamond of death, and why security is hard-shaped thing. Those things all create these things called fissures. We do not want to break through the ice while we're climbing Mount Everest. And we must flip the engagement model to win. We can't continue any longer down the same old security path. It's not going to work. And getting invited to the party is everything. You do not want to go to a party, be eating a piece of cake, and have somebody pour their beer all over it. It's not tasty anymore, right? So when you get invited to the party, these things matter. So Words matter, reduce friction, make consumable services, compliant and secure by default, and demonstrate business value. So I've challenged myself to have a lot more fun in life, and one of the things I wanted to share with you guys today is how do we have fun in this one? I think it'd be awesome. I'm going to need your involvement here in a second. So have fun despite those things below. Can you hear them coming? Help is on the way. And those 3 words below, that last bullet, is how we're going to do that. We're going to scare this next room. Okay? So let's talk about what we do in certain situations to make sure security is going right. So I'm going to bring up a little clip you guys might be familiar with. Okay? And we're going to talk through it, and then we're going to do an exercise at the end. Okay? You guys might know this movie, just maybe. But just act like this guy right here is the bad guy, telling you things aren't looking so hot. All right, let's see if this works.
Been on double secret probation since the beginning of this semester.
Double secret probation?
And that means one more slip up, one more mistake.
One more vulnerability, one more thing wrong, one more overly exposed asset to the internet, right?
And this fraternity of yours has had it.
Your whole organization goes down.
At Faber.
At your university, or your college, or your business.
Well, that was pleasant. Nice of him to stop by, don't you think?
We've got to do something. He's serious this time. I think he knows about the exams.
I need more budget. I need my team to work longer hours. We need smarter people. We're going to the cloud.
He's right.
You're right. We got to do something.
Absolutely.
You know what we got to do? Toga party.
Look at him. He's like, we can't do that. Oh, but we have to.
We're on double secret probation, whatever that is. We can't afford to have a toga party.
You guys are...
We've already asked for budget like 16 times. We can't do it again.
up for a toga party?
Toga!
Oh, who knew that Jim Belushi was the best incident responder ever? Right? If Jim Belushi right here, if he was in platform and engineering and all of these spaces, could you imagine? Right? Look how excited he is. He's like, I got you.
Toga!
Okay. Okay. So when it gets to that key part where they're saying that word, we're all going to chant. Can you guys, are you in on this? We're all going to go toga, because we're all incident responders, doesn't matter where you're from, okay? We're doing it, and we're going to scare the groom next door, and then we're going to go have a drink maybe. Here we go.
I think they like the idea, Hoove.
Oh, Otter, please don't do this.
Oh, are you
News
sure?
for you, pal. They're gonna nail us no matter what we do.
They're always going to win. They're always going to win, right? It's about responding quickly, shifting security left.
So we might as well have a good time. Toga.
Toga, 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 toga. Thank you very much. That is my talk. At this point, I'd love to take questions, or we can end on a high note. I don't know if it's going to get better. By the way, we just fulfilled a lifelong dream of mine, so thank you for doing that. All right, are there any questions? Because these are real. These are real things that we've done, right? This has been a 6+ year journey. It's super exciting. We got a long ways to go, but so thankful to be here. Anybody? Brandon.
Show business value. Do you have any go-to metrics or ways you like to do that?
You know, I'm trying to get better as a salesman. There's things that we do that are easy to show and demonstrate. So an example, Brandon, so the question was, I want to make sure everyone heard the question. Showing value, are there easy go-to things for that? There's a couple of things I would say. if you're running a risk process, whether quarterly or yearly, show what projects were successful that mitigated that risk, show the before and after score on those risks. Okay, so risk went down, it's no longer a high, it went to a medium. Hopefully that got you there. Is that good? Sure. Good, okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
How do we prioritize situations that are like high severity but low occurrence, like in terms of security, right? I feel like it's a hard one to always push, right? Like, well, that won't happen, we've been doing fine for years, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so low, I want to make sure I got it. High severity, low occurrence.
Rare, but it'll be bad.
Yeah, so I take those kinds of things, the philosophy is, should be automated. Okay, I'll give you an example. Open S3 buckets have destroyed companies a bunch of times. Why don't we have automation in place to detect that or to close that immediately in the public cloud? Those are things that, what are the things that absolutely result in breaches without a question? And those high severity things need to have controls wrapped around them. Okay, so I would prioritize that actually pretty darn high. Now, if you're mitigating chances and all that kind of stuff, we can talk identity management and controls in place to make sure that nobody could actually flip that switch on. You can do some unique things there. So, great question. Ben.
Joe, how do you start having those effective conversations around DevOps, making this part of the organizational culture?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate in this space that we have very forward-leading development and DevOps experts, but you have to show and commit real consumable services and real consumable plans that are effective. So we might have said, hey, we're going to go over and we're going to do this FIM project, but you guys are going to manage it. No, you have to show, hey, we've automated it. It's really easy. You can go through a dashboard and you can click, I'm good to go, and those were approved, and here's the change record that shows that. That stuff has to be easy. So it's about going out, talking to the business, but then showing and demonstrating back to them, like, look, this is easy. We're going to test this. If you don't like it, we'll consider other options. So, good question, Ben. Somebody else was over here, I swear. Was there anybody else? Michelle.
Ben kind of asked it, but when you have those highly resistant groups that in security, they don't want to be a part of it, how do you keep working at them without feeling like it's you against them?
Yeah, I think it's talking about doing the right thing in some cases. The right thing is not always the easy thing, but it's about talking about doing the right thing and showing the business good or the business result. The other way to manage through that was mentioned earlier, which is you can leverage your internal audit teams heavily to go and inspect an area you're struggling with if you need to. You can communicate up to the executive level saying this is a huge problem. We're not going to move the needle without teams committing to this work and advertising that. So we actually meet quarterly with our key stakeholders across the company to make sure they're aware of all the projects we have in flight and any issues in regards to traction within the organization, we ask for their involvement. So, Jairus.
So you talked about utilizing the security program to sell your products.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate a little bit about how that works and the value you see there?
Yeah, so what we're experiencing is a lot of companies they have zero interest in our products without talking security first. And those that are leaving it till the end, it's even deeper questions sometimes. So what we're doing is a couple of things. The plan is to embed architecture, engineering resources up front within those customers' requests for our products and solutions. So there's a consistent messaging and a consistent, secure approach to those solutions as they're developed for our customers. The second thing is we've created what I would say things that grease the skids for a deal. So a lot of documentation, security things that they might be interested in is already sitting there for our sales team. That's super effective. But ultimately, you have to be committed to being customer obsessed in some regards. Customers are going to have security related questions. you've got to turn those questions around really quickly, or you lose the opportunity there to sell a security program. And also, it really helps the security program grow when executives are hearing wind or catching wind of that. So those kinds of things all combined is what I'd say has really driven those spaces. There's got to be more questions. All right, everyone's like, hey, you committed. We're going to end early. I appreciate it, everyone. Thanks for letting me talk today. It was awesome. Thanks.